The alarm went off at 6:15, and Daniel Hartwell was already awake. He lay on his back, staring at the hairline crack in the bedroom ceiling, the one that had been there since the winter before last, the one he kept meaning to patch and kept forgetting about. Outside, the first gray light of November pressed against the curtain. A car moved slowly down the street. A dog barked once, then went quiet. He listened for Lily. Nothing yet. She usually slept until 6:40, sometimes 7 if the night had been cold. He had learned, in the 3 years since Claire left, to measure the value of mornings by their silence. Not peace, exactly more like the pause before a held breath releases. He had learned to love those 20 minutes, to drink bad coffee standing at the counter, looking at the backyard where the oak tree was finally losing its last few leaves. He was 34 years old. He worked 4 days a week for a mid-size appliance repair company called Westfield Service Solutions, where he drove a white van and fixed broken dishwashers and refrigerators in houses across the county. It was not glamorous work. It was not the kind of work he had imagined for himself at 22, when he had been studying electrical engineering and believed that ambition and direction were the same thing. But it was steady. It paid the bills. It left him home by 4 most days, which meant he was there when Lily got off the school bus. That mattered more than glamour. He got up, made coffee, stood at the counter. At 6:50, he heard the soft thud of small feet hitting the floor in the next room, the specific sound of a 6-year-old who had decided that falling out of bed was faster than climbing. And then Lily appeared in the kitchen doorway, her dark hair tangled, her pajamas twisted sideways, one sock on and one inexplicably missing. "Morning, Bug," he said. She looked at him with the slow, underwater expression of someone still mostly asleep. "Is Emma coming? She'll be here at 7:30. Lily considered this. Okay. She climbed onto her stool at the kitchen counter and rested her chin in her hands, watching him pour cereal into a bowl with the patient gravity of a small philosopher. Emma Calloway had been showing up at 7:30 on school days for 2 years and 4 months. Daniel had not asked her to do it, or rather, he had asked once, tentatively, during a period when his schedule had shifted and he couldn't make the morning drop-off work, and Emma had said of course the way people say of course when a thing is already decided. And then she had kept coming, long after his schedule had adjusted, long after the original reason had dissolved. He had never brought it up. She had never mentioned stopping. She knocked twice before she opened the door. She had a key, had had one for almost as long as she'd been coming, and stepped inside with the particular energy she always carried in the mornings. Not loud, not performative, but steady and warm and somehow larger than the room she entered. She was 32, with light brown hair she kept in a low braid on weekdays and left loose on weekends. She wore a dark green jacket she'd had for years, the kind of jacket that looks better with age, and she was carrying a paper bag from the bakery 2 blocks over. "Muffins," she announced, setting the bag on the counter. "Blueberry." "Don't fight over them." Lily immediately reached for the bag. "There's only 2, Daniel said. "I know," Emma said. "One for Lily, one for you." "I ate mine on the way." He looked at her. "You walked? It's not that cold. It's 38 degrees. That's not that cold." She said it with the mild certainty she brought to most things, not arrogance, just a settled relationship with her own judgments that Daniel had always found quietly enviable. She moved around his kitchen with the ease of someone who knew where everything was, which she did, because she had reorganized his spice cabinet twice and his pantry once, and had never apologized for any of it. She poured herself a glass of water and leaned against the counter and watched Lily eat with that expression she sometimes had, attentive, almost careful, like she was memorizing something. "She's got her reading assessment today," Daniel said. "I know. She told me Monday." Emma looked at Lily. "You nervous?" Lily shook her head, mouth full of muffin. "Good. You're going to do great." It was such a simple exchange, the kind that fills the margins of a life without registering as significant. And yet Daniel noticed, as he often noticed in these quiet mornings, that Emma knew things about his daughter that he sometimes had to be reminded of. Not because he was inattentive, he was not inattentive, but because Emma held a different quality of attention, patient, accumulative. the kind that comes from choosing to be present without being asked. He pulled on his jacket and found his keys and stood for a moment in the kitchen, watching the two of them, Lily showing Emma something in a picture book. Emma bending low to look, her braid falling forward over one shoulder, and felt something he could not name press against the inside of his chest. He left for work. He did not examine the feeling. He rarely did. It was a Tuesday, 3 weeks into November, when Lily asked the question. They were doing dishes after dinner. Lily, on her stool, assigned the job of drying the plastic cups because she couldn't be trusted with anything breakable, and the kitchen was warm and smelled like the pasta they'd had, and the evening had that comfortable shapelessness of weeknights when nothing is planned and nothing is needed. "Dad," Lily said. "Yeah. Is my mom ever going to come back?" He kept his eyes on the pot he was washing. He had been waiting for this question. In the abstract way parents wait for things they know are coming and hope will be delayed. He had thought about how he would answer it. He had, in fact, rehearsed a version of the answer in the shower once, which had felt ridiculous at the time and felt slightly less ridiculous now. "I don't know, Bug," he said. "Why are you thinking about that? Maddie at school says her mom went away and then came back. That does happen sometimes. Did my mom go away because of me?" He put the pot down, turned off the water, turned to look at her, this small, serious person with her dark eyes, and her too long hair and her plastic cup, held carefully in both hands. "No," he said. "Absolutely not. It had nothing to do with you." She seemed to consider this. The way she considered things with her whole face, chewing her lip slightly, reminded him sometimes, with a complicated ache, of Claire. Not because Claire had been the kind of person who sat with questions, but because the shape of it, the gesture, was inherited. "Then why?" Lily asked. He didn't have a good answer. He had never had a good answer. Claire had left with the quiet efficiency of someone who had been planning the exit for longer than she had let on a note, a suitcase, 2 phone calls over the following week that were more administrative than emotional, and then a slow dissolve into occasional emails and a voice that grew more foreign with each passing month. She was in Portland now, or had been the last time he knew for certain. She had a new life there. He had stopped trying to understand the architecture of it. "Some things are hard to explain," he said. "But it wasn't you. I promise you that." Lily nodded, apparently accepting this with the pragmatism children sometimes bring to the things adults find devastating. She resumed drying her cup. "Does Emma know why?" she asked. The question landed somewhere unexpected. "I don't think so," he said carefully. "She's nice," Lily said, with the simple finality of a verdict. "She is. Nicer than Maddie's mom. You've never met Maddie's mom. Maddie says she yells a lot." She set the cup down precisely on the counter. "Emma doesn't yell." "No," Daniel said. "She doesn't." Later, after Lily was in bed and the house was quiet, he sat at the kitchen table and thought about what an accurate observation that was. Emma didn't yell. She didn't demand. She didn't make her presence felt through volume or insistence. She made it felt through consistency, through showing up, through knowing, through the way she remembered the things he mentioned in passing and asked about them weeks later, as though she had filed them carefully away. He thought about the email sitting in his inbox, the one he had read 4 times already and not yet replied to. He closed his laptop, went to bed, did not sleep easily. It had arrived on a Wednesday morning, while he was in the parking lot of a strip mall, eating a sandwich between service calls. He had opened his phone to check his schedule, and there it was, in the inbox he rarely used for personal correspondence, from an address he still had saved under her name, Claire Whitmore. He sat in the van for 10 minutes after reading it. The sandwich went unfinished. The email was brief. She was returning to the area not to stay, she clarified quickly, not permanently, but for a few months at least, a contract position she had accepted. She didn't know how he felt about that. She didn't know how Lily would feel. She wanted him to know before it happened. "I've been thinking," she wrote, "about a lot of things. I don't expect anything. I just didn't want to disappear again without warning." He read it again that evening. And again on Thursday. He did not tell Emma. This was unusual. He told Emma most things not in a confessional way. not with the urgency of someone seeking advice, but in the natural rhythm of two people who talked often and honestly. She knew about the difficult client who had screamed at him over a warranty claim. She knew about the leak under the bathroom sink he'd been meaning to fix. She knew that he sometimes drove home the long way on bad days just to have 10 extra minutes of quiet. But he didn't tell her about the email. She noticed the change anyway. He knew she had noticed when, on Friday afternoon, she asked how his week had been, and he said fine, and she looked at him for a beat too long before saying okay and moving on. Emma never pushed. She would lay something down gently, like setting a glass near the edge of a table, and wait to see if he reached for it. He didn't reach. She let it go, but he saw her. On Saturday morning when she came to take Lily to the farmer's market, her eyes moving once to his phone on the counter, where he'd been rereading the email again, and then moving deliberately away. She knew something had shifted. She didn't ask what. He began cleaning the house the week after. Not the ordinary tidying he maintained. Out of necessity, he had always kept a reasonable household, but a deeper kind of attention. He reorganized the closet in the hallway. He replaced a light fixture that had been flickering for months. He bought new dish towels. He noticed himself doing these things and understood, distantly, what they meant, and pushed the understanding aside. Emma arrived on Tuesday morning to find him rearranging the bookshelf. She stood in the doorway for a moment, assessing. "Okay," she said. "What?" "Nothing." She set her bag down. "Where do you want Lily's library books?" "On the bottom shelf." She's supposed to be able to reach them. Emma moved the books without comment. She got Lily ready. She braided Lily's hair in the particular way Lily preferred, 2 loops instead of 1 at the bottom, for reasons that were apparently very important, and helped her find her left shoe, which had migrated under the couch, and walked her to the end of the driveway to wait for the school bus. When she came back inside, Daniel was still at the bookshelf. "Hey," she said. She was quiet for a moment. "Is everything okay?" "Yeah." He didn't turn around. Just felt like things needed to be in order. "Okay, you don't have to hover." It came out sharper than he'd meant it. He heard it land. He turned around. Emma's expression didn't change in any dramatic way. She looked at him steadily, with the particular quality of attention she had not wounded, not defensive, simply present. She had been on the receiving end of his moods before. She was not unfamiliar with them. But he saw something in her eyes that he couldn't quite read, something that retreated even as he noticed it. "I'm not hovering," she said, without accusation. "I'm just asking." "I know." He exhaled. "Sorry. Long week." "It's Tuesday." "Long several weeks." She nodded. She picked up her bag. "I'll be back at 3:30 for pickup." "You don't have to. I'm already going to be in that direction." She said it in the matter-of-fact tone she used to preempt his objections. He had stopped, mostly objecting. She left. He stood in the middle of his newly organized living room and recognized that he had just made the air between them strange, and that this was not her fault, and that he did not know how to fix it without explaining something he wasn't ready to explain. Lily fell asleep at 8:15 that Thursday, which was earlier than usual. She had worn herself out at the playground, and by dinner time her eyes had been going glassy with exhaustion. He had carried her to the couch while Emma cleaned up the dinner things. And Lily had sighed once and gone utterly still, her cheek pressed against the cushion, her breathing slowing to that deep, even rhythm that meant she was out completely. Emma was rinsing dishes. Daniel stood in the kitchen doorway. It was a quiet evening. The kind of quiet that accumulates, that becomes something itself. He didn't plan to say it. He had not woken up that morning with any intention of saying it. But there was something about the particular stillness, Lily asleep in the next room, the faint sound of water running, the ordinary domesticity of the scene, and underneath it the thing he had been carrying for weeks that made the words rise without warning. "I think I still love her," he said. Emma turned off the water. She didn't turn around immediately. She stood with her hands on the edge of the sink for 2, 3, 4 seconds. Long enough that he wondered if she hadn't heard him. Long enough that he considered saying, "Never mind," but didn't. Then she turned. Her face was still, not blank. He knew Emma's blank. And this was not it. This was something more careful. Something that had been prepared for, in some distant way, and was only now being unpacked. "Claire," he said. Unnecessarily. She nodded, almost imperceptibly. "I got an email a few weeks ago." He paused. "She's coming back to the area. And I've been thinking about it ever since, and I can't." He stopped. Started again. "I don't know what that means. I don't know if it means anything, but I think I needed to say it to someone." Emma was quiet. The refrigerator hummed. From the living room came the faint sound of Lily's breathing. "I'm sorry," he said. "I know I don't know why I'm telling you." "Because I'm here," Emma said. Her voice was careful. Level. "Yeah," he exhaled. "Because you're always here." He meant it as gratitude. He registered, a half-second after the words left him, that it might not land that way. Emma looked at him for a long moment. Her expression was doing something he couldn't fully read, not the warm steadiness he was used to, but something quieter. Something pulled slightly inward. "I always knew," she said, softly, almost to herself. He frowned. "What?" "That you still loved her." She seemed to be choosing each word with care. "You've never not. Anyone who watched you for 5 minutes could see it." He didn't know what to say to that. She turned back to the sink. She finished the dishes without speaking. He stood in the doorway and felt the strange suspended weight of what had just happened. Not the confession itself, but what followed. The absence of surprise in her voice. The thing her eyes had held that he hadn't been able to name. Only later, lying awake in bed, did it occur to him that she had said, "I always knew," rather than "I know." Past tense. As though she had been carrying the knowledge of it for a long time. As though it was not news to her but a thing she had been waiting for him to catch up to. And only much later, still hours later, near 3 in the morning, did it occur to him to wonder what that meant. He went back through things. Not deliberately, not with any agenda. But the memory is a strange processor. It retrieves without permission, assembles patterns from what it has stored, presents them without commentary. And in the days that followed, Daniel found himself in the middle of ordinary moments, driving the van, waiting for a diagnostic to run, standing in the grocery store, suddenly remembering something, seeing it differently than he had at the time. He remembered the night Lily had a fever so high that he had nearly taken her to the emergency room, the thermometer reading 103.8. Lily limp and flushed against his shoulder, Daniel's hands not quite steady on the phone. Emma had arrived in 17 minutes. She had not been asked. She had been called once, her voice immediately alert and calm, and 17 minutes later, she was at the door with a cool cloth and children's medication, and a specific knowledge of what to do with a febrile 6-year-old that she had acquired from some source he had never thought to question. She had stayed until midnight. She had not mentioned it afterward. He remembered a day, 6 months after Claire left, when he had come home from work and sat on the kitchen floor for no reason he could name, not crying, not collapsed, just sat there in his work uniform, with his back against the cabinets, too tired to move. Emma had come by for reasons he couldn't recall, had found him there, had not said anything dramatic, had simply sat down next to him on the floor and stayed there until he was ready to get up. He remembered the way she looked at Lily. The specific quality of it present, protective, something almost fierce beneath the gentleness. He had always understood it as affection for his daughter. He had never asked what was underneath the affection. He remembered small things too, peripheral things. The way she had stopped mentioning the man she'd briefly dated 2 years ago after Daniel had, he realized now, been noticeably, uncharacteristically quiet every time his name came up. The way she always seemed to know when his mood needed space and when it needed company. The way she sometimes started a sentence and stopped, redirected, said something else. He thought about the phrase again. "I always knew." The past tense. The certainty. The way she had said it without bitterness, without accusation, as though she had made a private peace with something a long time ago, and had simply been living on the other side of it ever since. He did not know what to do with this. He was not a man who moved quickly through emotional recognition. He knew this about himself. It was not a quality he was proud of, but it was accurate. He processed things late, understood things slowly, tended to name feelings approximately 3 seasons after they had already determined the shape of his behavior. He wondered, uneasily, what else he had been slow to name. She called on a Friday evening, which surprised him. The email had not promised a call. Her voice was, as he remembered it, low, precise, with a particular cadence he had once found deeply attractive and now found simply familiar. The way an old song is familiar. They spoke for 20 minutes. It was careful and strange, in the way that things are careful and strange when the people speaking have an extensive shared history and an undiscussed collapse between them. She asked about Lily. He described her the reading assessment, the playground, the one missing sock. There was warmth in Claire's voice when she listened. There was also something that wasn't quite fluency. An effort to it, as though she was reaching for a frequency she had been off of for a long time. They agreed she would come by the following Saturday, just briefly, just to see. He did not tell Emma about the call. This was becoming a pattern he recognized and did not examine. When Claire arrived that Saturday, Lily received her with the cautious friendliness she reserved for people she had heard about, but did not know polite, watchful, warming slowly. She showed Claire her bookshelf. She explained, in detail, the plot of a book she'd read twice. Claire listened with a concentrated attention that was, he observed, practiced. She was trying very hard. He appreciated the effort. He did not know quite what to feel about it. Emma had not come that morning. He had, for the first time in 2 years, made some implicit calculation and not texted her the way he usually texted her on Saturday mornings. She had not reached out either. He was not sure what that meant. At one point, he found himself standing at the kitchen window while Claire sat on the living room floor playing a card game with Lily, and he felt something that took him a moment to identify. He felt like a guest in his own house, not because of Claire, or not only, but because the version of this room that felt most like home, the version he was used to, the version that fit, included a presence that was not here. He put the coffee on and didn't think about that too hard. Over the next 2 weeks, he spent time with Claire. Not romantically, not in any declared way. But dinners, once, when Lily was at a classmate's birthday party, and he was not quite sure what to do with the free afternoon. A walk, once, on a gray Sunday. They talked about the years in between with the halting care of people reclaiming a shared language. She was different. So was he. He had expected this, and had thought it would feel like discovery. 2 people changed, meeting again, finding new angles. Instead, it felt like trying to read a book in a language he had once been fluent in and had let lapse. There were things she didn't know. Lily's preference for the 2-loop braid. The way she needed exactly 4 minutes of quiet after school before she could talk about her day. The specific placement of items in the kitchen that had evolved over 3 years of living in the same house with someone who was not Claire. He didn't blame her for not knowing. She had not been there to learn. But there was a moment, on the second dinner, when Lily knocked over her water glass and Claire reached for paper towels, and Lily looked up with an expression that was clearly searching for a specific response, and Claire gave a perfectly reasonable response, a kind response, but not the right one. Not the one that would have made Lily's shoulders drop, that would have transformed the small embarrassment into something inconsequential. He knew what the right response was. Emma had invented it 2 years ago. And Lily had accepted it as law. You say that's what the napkins are for in a tone of complete unconcern, and then you hand her one to help clean up, which makes her feel capable instead of clumsy. He said it himself. Lily's shoulders dropped. Claire looked at him, something passing across her face. "You're really good at that," she said. It was meant as a compliment. He nodded and didn't say. "I learned it from watching someone else." It was a Thursday. Emma came to get Lily from school and bring her back to the house the way she did on Thursdays. And when Daniel got home at 4, he found them in the living room, Lily, with her reading book, Emma on the floor next to her, their heads bent together over a page. He stood in the doorway for a moment before they heard him. Emma looked up. Something passed across her face, brief, private, and then her expression settled into the familiar one, the one that was warm without being demanding. They had dinner, the three of them, in the quiet way they often did on Thursdays. Lily talked about a project. Emma asked questions. Daniel ate and watched, and felt something building in him that he couldn't articulate. Afterward, while Lily was in the bathroom getting ready for bed, Emma stood in the kitchen pulling on her jacket. "I've been thinking," she said. "Okay." She took a moment. She was looking at the zipper of her jacket, not at him. "I think you've got things more sorted now than when I started doing all of this." She gestured vaguely at the kitchen, at the house, at the general logistics of his life. He frowned. "What do you mean? You've got a rhythm." Lily settled. "You know what you're doing." She looked up then. Her voice was steady, but he was watching her carefully now. "I think it might be good for everyone if I gave you a little more space." He felt something shift in him, sudden and not entirely explainable in its intensity. "Emma, it's not, I'm not going anywhere." She said it quickly, but she wasn't looking at him right. "I just think maybe I've been around so often that it's become a habit more than a choice. And with Claire back, what does Claire have to do with it?" She stopped, looked at him properly. "You're figuring something out," she said. "That takes room. You're not in the way." "I didn't say I was in the way." She said it carefully. "I said you might need room." Before he could respond, Lily appeared in the hallway in her pajamas, holding a book. "Will you read to me?" she asked, and she was looking at Emma. Emma crouched down to her level. "Tonight your dad's going to read to you." She touched Lily's hair lightly. "Deal." Lily looked uncertain. "Will you come tomorrow?" Emma smiled, the real one, the one that reached her eyes. "We'll see, okay?" "We'll see" was not the same as yes. Lily accepted it because she was 6 and had not yet learned to parse the difference. But Daniel heard it exactly. She didn't come the next Thursday. He hadn't expected her not to come. He hadn't realized, until she wasn't there, how completely he had structured his Thursdays around her presence. The specific ease of walking into the house at 4 and finding them, it was not until it was absent that he understood how much weight it had been carrying. Lily asked at dinner where Emma was. "She's busy today," he said. "Busy doing what?" "I don't know exactly." Lily looked at her plate. She was quiet, in a way she rarely was at dinner. A thinking quiet. The kind that preceded questions he wasn't ready for. "Is she mad at us?" she asked. "No, bug. She's not mad at anyone." "Then why didn't she come?" He didn't have an answer that was both honest and appropriate for a 6-year-old. He gave her the approximation. "Sometimes, people need time for their own things." Lily ate quietly for a moment. Then, "I don't like it when she doesn't come." "I know. It feels different." He looked at his daughter, small and serious, in her school clothes still. One sock on and one off, as was apparently a permanent condition of her existence, and felt something clarify that had been murky for weeks. Not something he was ready to name out loud, but something that had finally stopped moving long enough to be seen. "It does feel different," he said. He texted Emma that evening. Not urgently, not with declaration, just, "Hey. Hope you're okay. Lily asked about you." She replied, an hour later, "I'm fine. Give her a hug from me. I'll be in touch." He read it 3 times. It was perfectly kind. It told him almost nothing. He sat with the absence the way you sit with the discovery that something has been load-bearing that you never thought to check. The wall looks fine until you remove it. Then the ceiling tells you everything. He drove to her apartment on a Saturday morning. He had not planned this either. He had woken up at 6:15, as always, lain in bed, stared at the ceiling crack, and at 7:15 had gotten up, arranged for his neighbor Mrs. Patterson to sit with Lily for an hour, and gotten in the car. It was cold. The sky was the flat white of November at its most committed. He drove through the city with the particular focus of someone who has not planned what they're going to say but has made the non-negotiable decision to go anyway. She lived in a second-floor apartment in a yellow brick building with a green door. He had been there many times, for different occasions, and had always arrived with some defined purpose, helping her move furniture, dropping something off, a dinner invitation. He arrived now with nothing except the fact of his arrival. He buzzed up. She took a moment to answer. "It's me," he said, unnecessarily. A longer pause. "I know," she said, and buzzed him in. She was in jeans and a gray sweater, her hair down. She had clearly been reading. There was a book face down on the couch, and a coffee cup beside it. She stood in the middle of the room with her arms crossed, not defensively, he thought, but in the way of someone who needs something to hold. "I should have called," he said. "It's fine." He stood just inside the door. The apartment was quiet and warm and smelled like coffee, and the particular books and wooden furniture smell he associated with her. He had always liked it here. He hadn't thought about why. "I've been thinking," he said. "Okay, about what you said. About giving me room." He looked at her. "And I think you were giving me room because you thought I needed to figure out what I wanted." With Claire, she didn't confirm or deny. She waited. "The thing is," he said, "I think I've already figured it out." Emma looked at him steadily. There was something in her expression that held not hope exactly, not yet, but a quality of absolute attention, as though she had set down everything else. "I told you I still loved her," he said, "and I thought that was true. I think it was true at the time. But I've been trying to understand what I actually meant by it." He paused. "I think what I meant was I still love who she was, or who I thought she was, or the version of a life I imagined when she was part of it." He stopped. Organized what came next. "That's different," he said, "from being in love with a person, right now." The actual, current, present person. Emma's expression shifted slightly. Not dramatically, but something released in it. Some careful tension that had been held a long time. "I've been looking," he said, "at who's actually present, who has actually been here." He met her eyes. "And I've been a very slow study." She didn't laugh. She didn't fill the space quickly. This was one of the things about her. She did not rush toward resolution. She let things have their proper weight. "Emma." He took 2 steps toward her. Not close enough to demand anything, but close enough that they were no longer separated by the entire room. "I looked in the wrong direction for a very long time. I don't have an elegant way to say this." "You don't have to be elegant," she said. Her voice was quiet. "I missed you," he said, "this past week. And not in the way you miss a friend, in the way you miss something that was keeping everything together. And you didn't realize it was doing that until it wasn't there anymore." She looked at him. Her eyes were bright, but she wasn't crying. Emma was not someone who cried easily. She processed things quietly and deeply, and emerged on the other side of them with a clarity that other people reached for through noise. "You were the one who was always there," he said. "I kept looking at who left. I should have been looking at who stayed." A long silence. Not uncomfortable. The kind of silence that has something in it. "Are you sure?" she asked. Her voice was careful. "Not because I need you to be not for me, but because Lily is in the middle of this. And I am not interested in being an experiment." "You have never been an experiment," he said. "If anything, you have been the thing I took for granted. Which is almost worse." She considered this. He watched her do it. Watched her think it through, with the same systematic care she brought to everything. "And Claire?" she asked. "Claire is the mother of my daughter, and I will always," he paused. Found the words. "There will always be a version of that I hold carefully. But it's been finished for a long time. I just didn't finish it inside myself." Emma nodded slowly. She uncrossed her arms. She looked down at the floor for a moment, and then back up at him. "I should tell you," she said. "I have been very careful, for a long time, not to want anything from you that you hadn't offered. I know, because you were my friend first, and you had Lily, and you had things you were still sorting through." "I know," he said again. "So when I say I always knew," she stopped. Took a breath. "I knew what I felt. I kept it at the distance that seemed right. I was not going to make a claim on something that wasn't mine." He felt the full weight of that. 2 years and 4 months of Saturday mornings and school drop-offs and Lily's hair braided in 2 loops, and the correct response to a spilled water glass. All of it held lightly. All of it given without condition. "I don't know how to account for that," he said. "I don't think I can." "You don't have to account for it." She looked at him. "You just have to be sure." "I'm sure," he said. "I'm not certain of much, but I'm sure of that." Another silence. She moved toward him slightly, closing the remaining distance by half. Not all the way. Still something provisional in her posture, something that would not rush. "Okay," she said, quietly, as though it were not a small thing, which it was not. "Okay," he said. He brought Lily with him when he went back. Not that day he was careful with the steps, careful not to move in great dramatic leaps that Lily would need to absorb all at once. But the following Saturday, when Emma texted to ask if they wanted to come to the farmer's market, he said yes. And he let Lily pull on her coat and her mismatched boots, and they walked the 3 blocks together in the cold morning air. Emma was waiting at the corner. She was wearing the green jacket. Her hair was down. She was holding a coffee, and he saw it immediately, a hot chocolate in her other hand, already waiting, because she had known they were coming, and she knew what Lily drank on cold mornings. Lily ran the last few steps and took the hot chocolate, and said something that made Emma laugh a real laugh. Full and warm, and Daniel walked up behind them, and stood for a moment before they noticed him. He looked at the two of them standing together in the November light. He thought, "I have been a very slow study," he thought, "but I got here." Emma looked up and saw him. Her expression was the familiar one, warm, steady, but with something new in it. Something that didn't have to be careful anymore. Something that could just be. She extended the hand that was not holding her coffee. He took it. Lily walked ahead of them, holding her hot chocolate in both hands with the focused care of someone carrying something precious. The market was 2 blocks away. The morning was cold and flat white and very quiet. They walked, and nothing was announced, and nothing was rushed. And the ordinary morning continued to be an ordinary morning, which is exactly what some things need to be at the beginning, before they become everything else.